Hello, I'm Rob, and coming up on R&B Reviews, Sandra Bullock is lost in space in the very successful movie Gravity.
Yes, copy, I'm gonna try. Position. I don't know, I'm spinning, I can't.
Report your position.
GPS is down, it's down, I can't.
Give me a visual.
I told you nothing, I see nothing.
You have a visual of Explorer.
No.
You have a visual of ISS.
No.
You need to focus anything. The sun and the earth. Give me coordinates.
I can't breathe.
Coordinates.
Gravity, the science fiction film from director Alfonso Cuaron, was released just 2 weeks ago and has stayed #1 at the box office here in the US, even beating out Tom Hanks' latest film, Captain Phillips, and it has already made over $100 million in the US already. Gravity stars Sandra Bullock. She's taking a break from her usual comedy roles to star in a dramatic role as a medical engineer on her very first space mission, and she's accompanied by an astronaut played by George Clooney, who is about to retire. While floating out in space collecting data, disaster strikes when their shuttle is destroyed by floating debris, and the two are forced to survive out in the blackness of space. Now, before going into this movie, I knew very little about Gravity other than what I saw in the trailers, that it took place in space, that it starred Bullock and Clooney, but other than that, I did not know what I was in store for, and perhaps that's a good thing to go in with this movie. In the end, it was not exactly what I expected, but it was like I was watching a sort of big-budget art house film. Gravity, I thought, was a very well-made, deliberate-paced spectacle film, and one of the good aspects about Gravity, no surprise, is the technical aspects of it. For example, I noticed that the sound mix when the characters are talking back to a base on Earth at the beginning of the movie, that the sound was coming out of right speakers, left speakers, center speakers, like you were communicating to different parts of the areas. Oftentimes I complain with a lot of movies, especially this past summer, that some movies like R.I.P.D. kind of overuse the CGI, but here I thought it fit the film very, very well. I felt like it was very visually stunning. I felt like I was out there in space, like I was really there with the characters, floating and bouncing with them. And even after a while, I began to feel the sort of dizziness and claustrophobic that the characters must have been feeling. I heard that the movie was shot where it's hard to describe. Like, the actors' faces were the only things that were shot and everything else was computer animated. I don't know, but man, it was like I was really in space and it was very realistic looking. And speaking of the beginning of the movie, there's one point in the beginning of the movie where everything looks like it was shot in one take, and I was, oftentimes during the movie, I kept asking myself how they pulled this off and how they did it, because, wow, I mean, it's quite a great experience visually. It was a very great experience. And performances, Sandra Bullock, I thought, delivered a great performance as a woman who finds herself surviving in space and is forced to, use her head to get out of some situations. And oftentimes Bullock has to carry the film, and I think she does that very well. And George Clooney also does well as this sort of mentor to Bullock. And the character development is often in the dialogue as well as from the behaviors of the characters, so you kind of have to pay attention to what you see.
Where's home? What's your stop?
Like Zurich, Illinois.
Is there somebody down there looking out, thinking about you?
I had a daughter. A little girl with brown hair. Tell her that I'm not quitting.
Gravity, for me, is more than just a movie set in space. It's filled with metaphors, it's filled with allegories that I'm sure different people in the audience will interpret the film differently than another person. When I left the theater, I wasn't really quite in love with this movie as a lot of other people seem to be, but I kept thinking about it throughout the rest of my day, and eventually I kept recalling different points and kind of putting some things together from the movie where I was like, oh, maybe it does make more sense. I think Gravity is definitely a movie that may require multiple views. The movie, it does invite the audience to pay attention, to find meaning in the film, and it's not just about astronauts floating in space. There's much more behind it. I do think at times that the movie had moments that I thought stretched a little bit, and sometimes I found the movie to be a little bit repetitive here and there, but I did appreciate that it was a smart and challenging film with some realistic special effects, some leading characters that you could care for, and some stellar performances. So the movie is definitely not for anybody, and I'm not really in love with it. I mean, I liked watching it, and I liked some aspects of it, but I'm not, oh my gosh, this is a great movie of all time. I thought, for me, I'm going to give the movie a mild see it in theaters rating. Like I said, I liked the experience of it, but I'm not quite in love with this movie like a lot of other people seem to. As a matter of fact, this is probably another one of the most polarizing movies of the year so far. Okay, now I'm going to open the floor to you guys. What did you guys think of Gravity? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What did you like about it? What did you dislike about it? Post your comments about it, and if you have any feedback for the video, gladly post them. I do read everything, so thank you very much for watching.